Hello guys and welcome to my new video. So today I decided to have a look at the Mythic World First Race, and Method has killed heroic Mythic Argus, has become the best guild in the world, and Exorsus, just as I'm making the video, has gotten the second world kill on Mythic Argus. So it's basically a big surprise. It's not a big surprise at all. These two guilds have been dominating the whole expansion, the whole of Legion. They've gone first, seconds, like for a lot of the bosses and things like that. So it's not a surprise at all. I'm a little bit disappointed. I kind of wanted to see Limit in there. Limit is yet to kill Mythic Argus, but you know, they're going to be battling for the top 3 world spot, which is again amazing. To put that much dedication to be top 3 in the world, like a lot of us who are watching the video cannot comprehend the amount of dedication that you need to put in to get something like that. So you can see that actually Method also uploaded the video of their nerd screams, and they're pretty excited.
Stay alive now. Stay the fuck alive.
Don't
any personal you have.
Well,
any personal you have.
Yeah,
it's
so
easy.
How is it this easy?
GG! Wait, what?
No, please.
Yes!
Yes!
Fucking yes, boys.
They're pretty excited for the kill. The video is going to be probably put out in the next couple of weeks, at least until I think the unwritten rule among the top guilds is that until the first 5 guilds kill the boss, they don't release videos, they don't release the secret phase. So the biggest thing that is a lot of people are asking about is, what does phase 4, or is there even phase 4 or whatever, what happens below 20%? Because there's only one guild that streamed, or there's only one guild that I know of that streamed Mythic Argus progress, and it was an Asian guild. I'm probably going to put in some video footage of their previous kills. I think before the reset they were around 39%, maybe 35% or something like that. They were hitting that percentage mark before the enrage. So you look at that and you're like, wow, the DPS for that must be insane if you're hitting a boss at like 40% basically, and you can't, like, you don't have enough DPS. Like, overtuned? Probably not, because Method and Exorsus killed them. But the thing is, there's also been a couple of people suggesting that Limit was at around 20%, and that basically at around 20% you get into the phase 4, which is supposed to be completely different. I don't know, it's guessing right now. I haven't seen phase 4. Phase 4 is supposed to be a lot different. It's something, I mean, this is probably the last raid in the expansion, so let's hope for something really, really crazy. I made a video before about the phase 3. In phase 3, Argus goes all red, and like he does a couple abilities like dodging abilities, sights, and things like that. Pretty cool, nothing amazing, nothing like, wow, this is the best boss ever. So we have to wait to see until phase 4, until the kill videos are released. It took Method 320 wipes to kill this boss, which is not as much as Mythic Jaden, but Mythic Jaden was highly overtuned at the very start. I think the first 100 to 200 wipes on that boss was due to mechanics that were almost impossible. And you can see like a video I might put up that showcases some of the overlapping abilities that used to happen in Mythic Jaden were almost impossible to bypass. Like, you had to sacrifice tanks and things like that. It was highly overtuned, highly broken. So Argus feels, at least a lot of guilds who said it, they say that it feels right. It feels hard, it doesn't feel too crazy overtuned, but the rest of the bosses in Antorus feel a little bit easy. Like, Agramar is probably the only one that's a little bit like, you know, a step up, but every other boss besides that is supposed to be not a big step up from the heroic. Of course it's going to be a step up. Of course it's going to be hard, but for what guilds already, like the guilds progressing in Tomb of Sagaras, they were expecting a lot more. But that's not a good thing, because Tomb of Sagaras, again, I feel it was highly overtuned. 3 of the bosses were basically like a tier N bosses. Mr. Sajin, Avatar, Kil'jaeden was the last boss, but those 3 bosses could have been almost considered, in terms of difficulty, before the nerfs, could be almost considered as the last bosses. But first of all, before I go on tangents, let's look at the raid setups and of Exorsus and Method, and how they actually end up, what classes they actually end up bringing in. So it's actually interesting to see the Method actually went with 3 tanks and 3 healers. And actually Exorsus went with 3 healers as well. So you can see that when the DPS is tight, drop a healer is the go-to tactic. In terms of healing, from what I've read, a lot of people saying there is a lot of healing to be done, but you can't push it with certain classes. Both of the guilds end up using Holy Paladin, Discipline Priest, and Restoration Shaman, dropping things like Mistweaver Monk, Restoration Druid. A lot of these guilds progress with Restoration Druid, but they end up dropping it. A lot of people said that it's mainly because the first 2 phases, maybe even the 3rd phase, actually the first 2 phases, are pretty bad for Restoration Druid. Like, a lot of other healers can actually handle that a lot better. Phase 3 is supposed to be Resto Druid, actually tends to get better. Mr. Sajin was very similar. First 2 phases or whatever, terrible for Resto Druid. The damage patterns, like, damage comes in, it gets healed up, then damage in the next 10 seconds. Like, it just damage, heal up, and like, it just doesn't fit Resto Druid healing over time healing style. And you basically see that these 2 guilds have just dropped the Restoration Druid, opt in for the most optimal healer setup with a Holy Paladin, Discipline Priest, and Restoration Shaman. Now, like I said, in terms of tanking, Method actually went with 3 tanks. They went in with a Brewmaster, Guardian, and Blood Decay. These 3 tanks is actually a true representation of what tanking composition was for a lot of the top guilds. These 3 tanks, Brewmaster, Guardian, and Blood Decay, was used by a lot of Mythic Plus guilds, with the exception of a couple of bosses like Varimatchus, where Protection Paladins and Protection Warriors were brought in. But this comp has been used a lot. You can see that Exorsus actually ended up using 2 Brewmaster Monks. It's actually, a lot of people were saying as well that Method was considering dropping a Guardian Druid for another Brewmaster Monk. It's not, I'm not sure how true that is, but Brewmasters are OP for this fight. Brewmasters seem to be very, very strong, unkillable kind of tanks. And because you're bringing only 3 healers, you have to optimize your tanking, because there is a lot of tank damage actually happening here. So having the best tanks is actually quite important. Now, in terms of DPS, we saw a lot of single target classes. We saw a mixture of melee and ranged. We saw a lot of sub-rogues going in for both Method and Exorsus. There was a lot of sub-rogues. There were a few Fury Warriors. There was, interesting to see, there was 1 Red Paladin for each of the guilds. Red Paladin for each of the guilds. That's really, really cool. And of course, Marksmanship Hunters. You cannot forget Marksmanship Hunters. They're always there. And Frost Mages as well. It's actually interesting as well that Method geared up couple of sub-rogues and Frost Mages before the reset, or after the reset, and they were able to kill the boss right after that. So let's look at the kill timers and how they were able to do it. So Method actually killed the boss very shortly after the reset, after they geared up their Frost Mages, their couple of rogues and things like that. So Method was actually apparently very, very close to killing Mythic Argus before the reset, somewhere around on Tuesday. There were people reporting that it was around 4 to 6% HP left. So, and Skull mentioned the reasons why they were able to do it. What were the reasons? The mathematically impossible type of thing.
Isn't it? My tweet on December the 10th wasn't really a joke. When I said the boss was mathematically impossible, with that gear we had on that reset, and before the hit points got nerfed by 6%, it would have been very, very difficult to actually kill the boss, if not impossible. It was only after the 6% HP nerf and the extra reset of gear that we killed it. So even though most people, even though the tweet was kind of like a meme, and most people assumed it was a meme, it also had quite a bit of truth to it as well.
Like, a big reason for their kill was that because Argus was actually nerfed by 6%. So this was something that was not in like MMO Champion or Notes. It was basically in phase 3 when when the Argus heals up to 66%, he now instead heals up to 60%. So it's a 6% nerf on top of Method getting better gear, gearing up different classes, and then they were able to kill. They were very close already before Wednesday reset. So this nerf actually came in on Monday, last week Monday. So this was available for guilds before the reset, but no one was really close except for Method, it seems. Like I said before, Limit was supposedly around 20%, couple of other guilds around 30-40%, so there was a lot of things to make up. There was a lot of optimization to be done. I was kind of wondering that maybe they were like stacking Pantheon trinkets if it was possible. Maybe they would bring in classes with Pantheon trinkets, because Pantheon trinkets are going to end up making up for that extra DPS. But as you can see from like radio.io, actually very few Pantheon trinkets were used by both of the guilds. I think the only Pantheon trinket that was used was by Method's Brewmaster Monk. And you never know if that person logged out before that. Like, the way that radio.io registers gear and classes and specs is basically when the guild actually kills the boss, the gear and the spec that the person logs out with is registered. So a person can troll this and log out as a different class or different different trinket. So it's possible that maybe there was a trinket stacking involved, but I'm not completely sure. Maybe there was trinket stacking, like the Pantheon trinket. But it's really interesting to see the composition. It was interesting to see the amount of rogues, the amount of frost mages and things like that being brought in to this fight. Like, if you actually look at the breakdown of how long it took each guild to kill, like Emerald Nightmare and Trials of Valor and Nighthold, actually Method, the raid progress website, is actually pretty good for tracking these kind of things. There's a link below and things like that. But you can see that Antorus Burning Throne, it took Method 320 tries. It took him 6 days to kill the boss from the previous boss. So after killing Agramar, it took him 6 days. It took Method 11 days to do the same thing for Kil'jaeden. But as we know, Kil'jaeden was actually really, really broken. If you look at the Emerald Nightmare was cleared in 17 hours. So you can see that the difficulty. Emerald Nightmare, highly overtuned. Trials of Valor was too short, basically. Nighthold was pretty decent. Tomb of Sargeras was super hard. Super hard. We have to cover the parts where we talk about how hard. Is it too hard? Is Antorus too hard? Or too easy? Is Antorus just too easy? I really feel that, and a lot of guilds will tell you this from reading it, that Argus was actually very decently paced. Agramar was alright. It was a pretty good challenge for a lot of the guilds out there, for a lot of good Mythic Plus guilds. And every other boss was a little bit too easy. There wasn't a big upgrade from the heroic versions. It was more of it like, just don't completely mess up and we'll kill this boss. It was more of something like that. It wasn't like, oh, we gotta optimize the classes, we need to bring that class, we need to bring 5, we need to cut down to 3 healers to get the DPS checks. It was none of that. It was more of it, just don't completely fail the mechanics and we'll kill this boss in like 50 tries maximum. Like that was the general consensus of how Antorus turned out, except for Agramar and of course except for Argus. Because Argus, I feel that from a lot of the feedback that I've got, that I read, Argus was supposed to be pretty decent. A lot of people will tell me that, was it too hard or was it too easy? I don't want another Tomb of Sargeras. I don't want another Tomb of Sargeras purely for the fact that who wants 3 bosses? Who wants to wipe 400 times on 3 bosses? That's how guilds get destroyed. That's how people leave guilds. That's how people don't want to raid Mythic. I'm talking for the 99% of the guilds, Mythic progression guilds, that can't put in the same amount of time that these top guilds put in, and they're not looking to wipe it. They want a challenge, but they don't want the wall. They don't want the wall. Now a lot of people will tell me that, why not make these bosses really hard and then nerf them later on? It is possibility for things like that. But I honestly feel Argus was a good challenge, or at least from what I've read. Like, looking at numbers, 320 wipes is not bad. It's not bad. Argus was a decent challenge. Agramar was alright, and every other boss was a little bit too easy for your good Mythic Plus guild. I want to know your opinions about how you feel about this. I want to know your opinions about how you feel about Method grabbing the world first kill, Exorsus grabbing the second. No surprise at all. These two guilds have been dominating the whole expansion, like especially with things like Serenity disbanding. A lot of top end guilds is panic because of AP grinds, legendary grinds. They can't put in the time and things like that. But let me know how you feel about this video. Let me know how you feel about the mythic plus mythic kills, mythic difficulty. If you are in a good guild, if you are in like a 10 out of 11 guild, let me know how you feel about the boss difficulties and things like that. So thank you for watching this little video, and I'll see you next time.